Yo, what's good everybody? This is Suheel with Feel Good Threads, and today we're gonna level you up. We're not customizing shoes, we're customizing chairs. Let's go. Alright guys, so just like we prepare shoes, we're gonna go ahead and prepare this leather chair first. I grabbed this bottle here of 50% isopropyl alcohol, and what we're gonna do is just grab a microfiber towel, or you can grab any kind of rag that doesn't leave lint or fiber. And we're going to just place a little bit of this stuff on the microfiber towel so we can get the leather prepared. You don't want to soak it, you just want to make sure that you do see some kind of a wet mark afterwards and that it dries pretty quickly. Make sure you cover all the edges, and you just want to swipe quickly. You don't want to overdo it, you just want to make sure that the surface is completely prepared right. Because it's important. This is actually one of the most important steps, because if you mess this up, then it could leave your paint not bonding onto the chair. And obviously this is a high traffic area, so we want to make sure that the high traffic parts like this front are prepared correctly. Alright guys, so first things first, I have a stencil here that I'm going to work on. To weed out the stencil, I'm going to go ahead and use one of these X-Acto knives. I'll leave a link for you guys for this guy and pretty much everything in the video, so don't worry about taking notes. But again, we're going to weed out the parts of this stencil that I don't need. It's a very, very large stencil, so I have to be very careful on when I'm weeding this out. So let's just go ahead and start from the middle. And you just peel up one corner and very gently pick it up. And you can see this part here. I'm not going to need this part anymore, so I'll just put it down. I usually put it in a corner or somewhere with it. In case I ever need it again, I'll have it. And we'll just continue through and just knock all of these guys out. Now for the print, I actually made it a little bit bigger on purpose. And I did that because I wanted to have that cartoony kind of look. And generally, cartoons will exaggerate features or details, and so that's what I kind of wanted to replicate as well, especially because you guys will see that we'll have a special character here at the end of the tutorial, and he's a cartoon, so it just makes sense. So as I go through each one, just got to make sure that the parts that I leave, they're going to be covering the chair, and that means that we won't be painting those pieces. And that's what's going to give us our contrast or pattern at the end. And now, let's get our character out. When you're working with a lot of pieces and you're weeding, just got to be patient. Just got to be patient and careful. See, there's pieces like his ear here where still want to leave the inside of his ear, but at the same time you got to take the whole stencil off. So now I've got everything peeled out. The stencil was so big I had to put it together in two pieces. That's why you guys could see maybe a line right here. The next portion, guys, we're going to do is we're going to actually put some of this transfer tape here onto the whole stencil that we made, and we're going to peel it off this backing here. All right, the reason we do that is because the stencil on the bottom here, it's just like a sticker, and what we need to do is we need to peel that sticker off and place that sticker on the place we're going to paint, which is the chair. All right, so let's get started on that next. Before you do that, you got to make sure that everything that you're placing down here is all intact. So anything like, for example, a circle here that's missing, you got to figure out what happened to that circle. It looks like it just kind of got bogged down here, and then place it down exactly where it needs to be. And I think we're good to go now. So let's start with putting down this transfer tape. When you place it down, I usually try to start it from the front here and lay it down as straight as I can. So I'm gonna just lay it down gently. And as you go through, you wanna just make sure that the tape is nice and even with the actual stencil. You guys see me pressing it down gently? And that just helps guide the tape down correctly. I'm gonna try to avoid having any bubbles. So again, just lay it down very carefully. And that gives you the beginning of the stencil there. Take one of these guys here. And that'll really help get this transfer tape on the stencil. So when you peel it off, it's easy to peel off. Alright guys, so this is the top portion of the seat, and as you guys can see, it's already been prepped like we did. What I'm doing is I'm going to take the stencil that we are working on here and start laying it down on the actual seat here. It's a big panel, so I got to work very carefully with it. And what I'll do is I'll start from one of the corners first and just kind of measure out Bart first, because I think he's the main character, and so we got to make sure that he's in the right place. So if I lay him down, I've got to check the edge and make sure that the edge matches up nicely. So I'm thinking about maybe like right there is where he should be, and then I got to just double check and make sure the top is good. Okay, so the top edge looks pretty good as well. All right, so let's go ahead and just start peeling them off. Need a little bit of room here, so I'm just gonna move this guy out of the way. All right guys, this is the time where we gotta pray, because this is such a big piece that I can't really mess up. So I'll take a corner of it here, start peeling it. And we'll start to take the whole first side off here. And now we've got another part here that we have attached. So we've got to make sure both of them come out together. And right now, that's not happening. So let's see what we could do. Let's peel this side. And let's see if maybe we can get it to work. And this is why we use transfer tape, because now I merged two pieces together that were not supposed to be together. And now we can start to very gently pull the whole stencil apart. And now you guys can see the beginning of laying this guy down. So the first edge, I think should go right about there. But I gotta be careful not to just lay it down right away. So what I might have to do is pull this guy off a little bit so I can see. Try to lay it down again. Now I can breathe a little bit. Whew. All right. That was stressful, guys. Not gonna lie. And as I start to peel it out, I gotta make sure that it lays out straight. Good to me. So again, I'm gonna just continue to do what we're doing, pulling a little apart, and then laying down. important to try to get Bart, the outer edges on him first. Because if you get the outer edges on him, then what ends up happening is you can fill in the inside. If you mess up on this outer edge, then he's gonna look distorted. And we don't want a distorted looking Bart. That's gonna ruin the whole project, right? Everybody's gonna say, what happened to your Bart, bro? It looks so good, and then the Bart came out. Alright, so let's continue to do what we're doing. Gently pull and gently place. Now at this point, if you guys aren't nervous for me, you guys have some strong souls. Alright guys, so I'm just using this little guy here to press down all of the stencil, make sure it's properly placed down. And after we get this all situated, we're gonna go ahead and peel the transferred paper off. Any parts that I see that I could fix still, I'm trying to fix. So here's an example here. Make sure it's pressed down right. There we go. Alright, I think we're good to go there. And we're on to our next step, guys. And that next step is to peel off our transfer paper. So let's get it. Alright guys, so I'm starting just from a corner and I'm trying to peel up the transfer paper. And as now I peel the transfer paper up, you really want to try to press down on the vinyl because the vinyl is placed exactly where I want it. So you don't want it to peel up with the transfer paper. What you usually want to start doing is peeling up one side and then going from one side, left side, over to the right side. So you guys can see I'm trying to get the whole corner here off of the vinyl, and then we'll start to peel the transfer paper to the right. This transfer paper is super strong. Alright. So now you guys can see I have something to actually hold on to. So I'll press down here. As I press down, I'm going to pick up. Press down, pick up. Alright y'all, so the first part, the top portion is already taken off. Now I'm going to do the harder part, which is the part with Bart and with the bigger portion of the LV print. So you guys can see that I'm gotta pull it off from the corner here, and lucky for me I placed enough of a edge here where it doesn't affect the actual print. And I did that on purpose just to cover up when I'm painting so there won't be any overspray. Because what happens is next is we'll be painting this guy, and I'm going to choose to do the painting with an airbrush. Reason being that it's just going to be a lot easier to apply, and I'm actually going to do a fade today as well. So when you're fading, it's a lot easier to fade with an airbrush in my opinion than when you're doing it by hand. Sometimes you just need to manipulate it a little bit here and there. Alright, so this is good. Alright guys, so I've already got the stencil all laid out. The next step is just to make sure that any spots on the stencil that seem to be popping up or any bubbles, you press them down, you make sure that everything looks nice and clean, and then we seal off the edges with some kind of a masking tape. Today I used a Scotch 3M tape. The reason I'm using this stuff is because it's super sticky and tacky. As long as you don't have it on there for too long, you can peel it off and you won't have any like glue stains or anything of that nature on this. So that's what we're doing next before we start actually shooting the pillow part of the couch here. Alright guys, so I've got my airbrush here. Today I'm going to be using this Iwata HPCS, and this airbrush is a great airbrush just because of the simple fact that it's very specific on where it shoots, and it's just, Iwata's are great quality airbrushes in general. What I'm going to be focusing on is doing light coats on top of all of the parts that are showing right now, and what we're going to start with is just a flat white, and the flat white is going to be our base. Alright. For example, Bart's going to be that yellow colored skin. We're going to have him in pink fur. Things that are really a light color need a nice white base from the get-go, so then you'll have a nice bright yellow and a bright pink as well. So let's get started. I'm going to start by grabbing some Angelus white paint, and we're going to start shooting. This is flat white, guys, so I'm going to just drop that inside of this airbrush. Let's test it out first. Whoa. Okay, that worked. Worked a little too good. Alright guys, after hours of taping, I've got the whole chair, at least in the front portion, all prepared and ready to go to paint. So our next step now, since we've given it a day to dry, I'm going to start to actually put a fade or a gradient on the LV print. Now for me, I noticed that Virgil Abloh just lined up with Louis Vuitton, and they're coming out with this LV bag that has almost like a UV light in it, and it changes different colors. So I'm going to try to replicate that. I mean, it's not going to be exactly like that, but it'll look very similar to it. So with that said, guys, let's go to our paint area and let's pick out our paints, and we're going to go to the next step. Alright guys, next step before we start the actual painting of the LV print, we got to cover up Bart so we don't get any overspray on him. So let's go ahead and start with that first before we paint anything else. Guns loaded, it's time to spray. So next, guys, I'm going to use a heat gun. We're pretty much done with the paint job here. We're going to unpeel the stencil back now, but I always use a heat gun just to kind of get the surface of the stencil a little sticky, and it'll come off a lot easier, and it'll pull off less paint that we've done. So hopefully we don't pull any paint off, but if we do, we could always go back and fix it. Alright y'all, so the big reveal, we're going to start untaping this. what I usually start doing is taking off the corners first before we take off the stencil, just so you know when you pull the stencil off, it's free to move. And alright guys, so we're going to be unmasking the sides first, and the reason we do that is because the last thing that's going to come off is the actual stencil, and we want to make sure that we give that the freedom to actually be able to move and take it off easily. And so let's take the time and just very gently and carefully peel off all the edges. Now it's important when you do that you're trying to keep the stencil intact, because we want to pull that off controlled. We don't want it to be like, oh, we accidentally pulled something else off and part of the paint chips off with it, alright? Alright, my Feel Good fam, another tutorial in the books. I hope you guys appreciated this video. If y'all did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Again, my name is Suheel with Feel Good Threads, and like usual, I'm gone. Peace!